So during game jams, I frequently get asked about setting up local multiplayer in UE4. So this will be a quick one, and I'll aim it more towards jammers. Okay, for starters, first go to project settings, and make sure you have split screen unchecked, especially if you're going to use shared camera. Otherwise, if you are going to use split screen, then check that. And if you don't have enough controllers, you can always assign the keyboard to player 1 and your first controller to player 2 from just checking this box. So for starters, we'll first set up our blueprint game mode. So for this one, a quick hack is to set your default pawn to none, and then you can either go to project settings and set your blueprint game mode, or you could just do it in your world settings around here. Just set it to blueprint game mode and none. I'll explain why later. So now we're gonna have our camera. So our characters by default have cameras. You can, to get rid of these, we can just go. You can keep them in if you want to, but I just don't like having too many extra components which do nothing. So to get rid of them, just open up your local C++ file, not the header file, the CPP file, and we'll go to the cameras here in the constructor, and you can just comment it out or delete it. And here we can just hit compile, and there, it's gone. So next we have spawn points, which are just empty blueprints with no scripts or anything in them. The reason I use these over player starts or even straight up any target points is so in case I in case I want to add code to it, and it's more expansive rather than just sticking to just your player starts or target points. So in the viewport, you just add a camera or a spring arm if you want to have like more control over it. And then here I'll just go through the scripts. So on begin play, we need to get all our spawn points which are in the scene. We'll store them in an array of spawn points, so we can and then we'll shuffle them around so we can just randomize spawns. Then we have our for loop. The for loop has you pretty much might want to use a variable here, especially if you're letting the user control how many players are going to be in this match. Then I'll just save a reference to it just to make my code neater. Over here, we'll just check if that player controller already exists. If it does, then we won't create a new one. If it doesn't, we'll create a new one. And make sure you have spawn pawn checked. Then we'll go to spawn, then we'll spawn our actor, which is our third person character. And we can just straight up use this. We can just straight up use this from the index of spawn point. Oh yeah, also only use transform if your scale of the spawn point is equal to the character scale. Then we can straight up possess what we just spawned with the controller we just created. Then when this is done, we get all the players we spawned, and we pretty much get their controller, and we use this function called set view target blend. So with this function, we can pretty much set pretty much what they see is going to be through this actor. So it's going to take by default it'll take this camera, and yep, that should be the basis for the camera. Then if we go to our character, all we need is to get a reference to our base camera. And then for movement component, all you need to do is, it's pretty much the same thing as the default, except you're going to be getting, you're going to be going off the yaw of your base camera component. You can straight up use base camera, but if you add more to it, and if you add more components to your base camera, this is an easy way to keep track of it. And by now, we just put our components in the scene. So 1, 2, 3, 4, base camera in. let me just reset the rotation. Let me fuck that up somehow. Move it back here. Move this down. And if I hit play, I've got my first controller, second, and third. I don't have a fourth controller, so I can't test it. And yeah, that's pretty much it for setting up local multiplayer with this with the shared screen.